Hey everyone, this is Matt Wakeling and you're listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. This is the show I produce in Sydney, Australia, where I speak to leading guitarists and guitar figures from all around the world. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now, as regular listeners will know, most of the time this show involves me interviewing someone. Occasionally we do live concert reviews, and that's the case today, where I'm talking about the Whitesnake and Scorpions gig in at Sydney at Kudos Bank Arena on February the 26th, 2020. If you head over to guitarspeakpodcast.com and follow the live concert reviews links there, you'll see a bunch of reviews we've done, either in print or audio podcast style ones like this. We've covered shows by Joe Satriani, Alice Cooper, Ace Frehley, Marty Friedman, Michael Sweet, and a few others. So yeah, it's not the main thing we do, but I love getting out to shows and reviewing them when I can. Now today, first you'll hear my reflections on the gig, and then our friend Jeremy Barnes, Guitar Speak podcast alumni, will join me and we talk through the show as well. And there's a cool treat. Jeremy busts out his guitar and shreds some 8-finger licks in the style of Joel Hoekstra, some legato tapping in the style of Reb Beach, and a little bit of John Sykes thrown in there as well, all in reference to the Whitesnake guitar players. If you want to jump ahead to my conversation with Jeremy, just fast forward, I don't know, about 12 minutes or something, and that'll get to that part of the show. I also want to give a shout out to my good friend Rick Thomas, who joined me on the night. Rick and I have been friends for a while now, and he's an excellent musician, great drummer, teaches guitar, bass, drums, all sorts of things, and he is a Whitesnake aficionado. Big fan of David Coverdale, Deep Purple, all those kind of connections. So I had a great time in there with Rick too. Thanks for coming, Rick. And it was such a cool night. So this tour was always going to be a really short one. There were just 3 dates along the east coast of Australia. That schedule looked to become even shorter when Scorpions frontman Klaus Meine fell ill after the opening show in Melbourne. Now, by all accounts, that show was a corker, but he quickly fell ill. But after surgery on some very nasty kidney stones, a stint of much needed bed rest, and some quick rescheduling, Meine was back on stage a week later at a bustling Kudos Bank Arena in Sydney. First up though, before the Scorpions hit the stage, of course, the Whitesnake opened this show. It was a double header show. Both bands played for 90 minutes. And Whitesnake came on just as the last strains of The Who's My Generation faded from the house PA, and they just launched like a coiled spring into a frenetic Bad Boys. David Coverdale, he is amazingly fit and sprightly at age 68. He totally owned the catwalk and the arena. And it's pretty remarkable that a guy who has fronted rock royalty for close to 4 decades, starting with Deep Purple back in 1973, man, he still sounds great, taking on some tough vocal material. A few parts were rearranged, but his trademark baritone rasp was as recognisable as ever. Speaking of vocals, man, the entire band's BVs were killer, so on point, and they were aided by a really great front of house mix. And vocally, I want to put a shout out to the bassist Michael Devon, who not only wailed on his black Rickenberg all night long, but he took on some extra high vocal parts with ease. And I talk about that a little bit more with Jeremy Barnes later in this episode. Now, Whitesnake, man, the guitar alumni of that band is ridiculous, with names like Steve Vai, John Sykes, Adrian Vandenberg, Bernie Marsden, Doug Aldrich, just to name a few. That's not even all the guitar players who've appeared in Whitesnake. But it is an amazing roster of players. Now, the current team of Joel Hoekstra and Reb Beach were unbelievably great, and they really pay respect to this 6-string heritage while still putting their own stamp on things. So, case in point, Reb Beach, who's, by the way, been in Whitesnake for 18 years himself, he was adding really cool whammy bar stuff and legato tapping into the classic Here I Go Again solo. Joel Hoekstra, who we had on the podcast back in episode 74, he was doing his multi-fingered, 8-finger tapping approach, fitting that into the tunes as well, while still being really respectful to the original parts. I love that. Now, the guitar tones were massive. Hoekstra was rotating a trio of Les Pauls and a custom Strat. Now they've all got the custom Whitesnake graphics on those guitars. They look super cool. Red Beach was playing a bunch of usually the modern S style as far as I could tell. And extra geeky fans would have noticed a quilted maple, sir, with an angled pickguard that, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but that angled pickguard, it echoed some of the visual aesthetic of Red Beach's signature Ibanez Voyagers that he played back in Winger's heyday. I don't know if you remember those guitars, but I certainly do. Let me know if you're with me, if you think there was some kind of nod to those guitars. Not surprisingly, Whitesnake's self-titled 1987 album featured very heavily in the set. And older material like Ain't No Love in the City was fantastic as well. That said, a trio of tunes from the 2018 Flesh and Blood album were also super well received by a very vocal crowd. And it was great to hear those songs live. Now, if you've heard our interview with Joel Hoekstra, that was recorded back in February 2018, and he talks about the making of that album, the writing with Coverdale and with Red Beach, working out guitar parts. So it was super cool for me to hear those parts, to hear those songs live. Loved it. Whitesnake's killer set was massive. It ended with an epic in the still of the night, which was just a perfect closer. My only criticism, and it's not a criticism, it's just a personal wish list for me. I would have loved to have heard Crying in the Night, but you can't have everything, and the 90-minute set was pretty killer. Now, onto the Scorpions. Now, the Scorpions are easily continental Europe's most enduring rock act. They have a huge global following, so I was pretty surprised to realise this was their first ever Sydney show. Klaus Meine, the frontman I mentioned earlier, who with founding guitarist Rudolf Schenker has appeared on every Scorpions album in the band's 50-plus year career. Yeah, 50 years. Unbelievable. He looked in great form anyway, post-surgery. And like Coverdale, his recognisable vocal timbre still passes the blindfold test. You'd spot that vocal anywhere. And Meine seemed genuinely grateful to be back on stage, and he even apologised for the aborted 2018 Australian tour shows, which were cancelled due to Meine having some vocal issues back a couple of years back. He must have thrown at least a few dozen drumsticks into the crowd that graced his occasional cowbell playing during the guitar solos. He'd play a little cowbell and spend the rest of the solo throwing drumsticks out. A little bit of tambourine stuff there too. But he was awesome. And the lineup of Schenker, longtime lead guitar player Matthias Jabs, and the rhythm section of Mickey D and Paul Macedowa, they attacked the set with teenage-like enthusiasm. Rudolf Schenker, he was playing his trademark flying V's all night. He had his Harlequin colour scheme on one of them, bunch of other V's, even his acoustic for an unplugged version of Send Me an Angel. You guessed it, it was an acoustic flying V. Very cool touch. He made super good use of the catwalk. He was just running back and forth all night, and he's well into his 60s as well, and looked fantastic. Sounded great. His meaty rhythm guitar, it propels the Scorpions. It struck me kind of not unlike Malcolm Young would do in AC/DC, really driving the band. And the lead guitarist, I mean, Schenker took a couple of leads as well, but Matthias Jabs did the most of the heavy lifting in terms of wailing guitar parts. He wielded a pair of custom Dominjet Explorers, which had very cool solar system inlays. You'll have to look up some pictures to get what I'm talking about, but he was fanging away on those and dishing out really tasty blues rock solos. You heard a few diminished runs in there as well, somewhat reminiscent of Uli Roth or Michael Schenker's tenure in the Scorpions, I'd suggest. He also played a couple of strats, especially when they played Winds of Change. There's really great hooks in between the verses that can only be played on the Strat, and he pulled a great tone for that. I couldn't see any pedal boards or stuff on stage. Unlike Whitesnake, you could see the pedal boards. The Scorpions probably weren't pulling as wide a range of guitar tones, but they were just big, classic rock tones. It's pretty cool. The Scorpions front of house team, those guys went to town with endless graphics and a light show, which was lasers, crowd blinders, lots of crowd blinders. Yeah, man. I mean, new technology, but had a distinct 80s feel to it, to my ears and eyes at least. And the front of house mix was punchy, but it was loud, almost to the point of pain at times. A lot of Rudy Schenker, super loud all night. It's a great tone, but a little fatiguing would be my criticism of the mix. But you know, that can happen in a giant room. And I was, to be fair, I was towards the side, not far from the ground. The floor level was packed. The edges of the arena slightly less so, and that's in part due to the fact that I would imagine that the show had been rescheduled. But nonetheless, that was the show, and there was a rabid fan base ensconced in the mosh pit for the Scorpions, singing along note for note, and it was obvious that the diehard Aussie Scorpion fans were absolutely loving everything that was going on. So, and a couple of days after the show, you know what? I was still humming "Rock You Like a Hurricane," which was the non-surprising encore from the Scorpions. Good times at Whitesnake and the Scorpions, and thanks to MacIver of VMPR, who helped hook me up with tickets to go and see the show and provide this review. All right, I'm going to jump over now to my conversation with Jeremy Barnes, where we discuss the show in further detail. Jeremy Barnes, welcome back to the Guitar Speak podcast.
Hello, mate. It's been too long.
It has. It's been, when did we talk last year?
I listened to every single one of them, mate. It's you're killing it, mate. Well done. Brilliant.
Thanks. Thank you so much.
Brilliant.
Mate, people loved your episode, and as did I. So,
I just talk too much. That's my fault, buddy.
Perfect podcast guest.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's a good thing on the podcast.
Hey, I saw you from afar at the Whitesnake Scorpions gig, so I thought it might be good to reach out and have a chat about it.
Yes, and I had such a great night. I took my 13-year-old son, who's a monster guitar player, and he's getting to see all these amazing rock shows that I never did because those bands didn't come out here when I was young, you know?
Yeah. I think it was definitely the Scorpions' first Sydney gig.
It was.
And Whitesnake haven't been out.
Play.
Sorry?
Yeah, I don't know when. I think Scorpions were supposed to play in 2018 or something.
That's right,
Klaus's voice blew out. But Whitesnake have been here, I think, maybe once or twice before, but I've always been either busy or touring or, not old enough to see them.
Sure. So man, it all happened. Even after a reschedule, it finally happened.
I got there.
Last week. All right, let's just jump straight in. Thoughts? Whitesnake, they opened the show.
Mate, I thought they were amazing. For me, I actually have to say, mate, this is kind of my favourite incarnation of Whitesnake.
Okay, yep.
I'm a fan of Joel Hoekstra, and I have been since I got his The Moon Is Falling record in 2003. So I go back that far with Joel.
Yeah, right.
I don't know if you... Yeah, so I know you've interviewed him before, so you probably know all of that stuff as well. But so I've been a fan of his for a long time. So when he joined that band, I was like, man, Reb Beach, who I love, I adore Reb Beach's playing, and I've been a massive fan of him since it must be coming up 30 years that I've been a fan of Reb Beach.
Okay, yep. Through Winger and his solo.
Yeah, through Winger and the Cutting Loose. Remember Cutting Loose instructional video?
Yep.
So to actually have both of those guys in the one band for me was just, that was nearly too much. It's very emotional, mate. And then having been a Whitesnake fan for 35 years, now I'm giving my age away a little bit. It was just, for me, it's my favourite incarnation of that band. I love Tommy Aldridge on drums.
Yes.
I think Michael Devon is a great, solid, very dynamic bass player, and his BVs are just insane. His vocals are just insane.
I mentioned that actually in my print review. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think he was doing a bit of stunt doubling for Coverdale in some
He
spots.
was doing a bit of stunt doubling because, Dave is pushing 70 now.
Yeah.
But for me, man, I think he still is a great singer.
100%.
Obviously,
100%.
obviously, probably not hitting all the notes as easily as he used to. And I don't know if this is a trade secret, and I don't know whether you mentioned it, but I think they were tuned down a whole step.
Okay.
So, and the only reason I say that is because I took video of Joel doing the Is This Love solo.
Yep.
And I watched it yesterday. I just happened to have a guitar in my hand, and it was definitely in D.
Ah, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So they tune the guitars down a whole step so they can still play essentially the same chords.
Cool. Yeah.
But it's just a bit easier on Dave. But mind you, there's, I would say with that gig, I got to tell you, man, I reckon 85% of the singers out there that are great singers still couldn't sing that gig.
Oh, definitely. And of his contemporaries, like, remember, he joined Purple in 73.
Yeah.
Who else is still around and still taking on this stuff? It's amazing.
Well, and that's exactly right. The only guy that I can think of is Farnham, and that guy's just a freak of nature.
Yep.
Because he's amazing as well. But, I thought as a band they rocked. They were really tight.
Yeah.
The tones were just all insane.
Yeah.
For guitars that loud as well, they were still really clean.
Yes. Yeah, the mix was amazing for the Whitesnake set.
Yeah, it really was, man. The mix was amazing. And for me, I was right there at the edge of the walkout, like right up the front. So I was literally meters from David Coverdale, which was, wild for me because I did actually have a Whitesnake poster on my wall when I was 16 years old.
Wow, cool. Was the first record... Sorry, mate, keep going.
No, to be standing there, like right there, and listening to him sing, and we could actually hear his voice in the mic. We were that close.
Oh, really? Wow. Wow.
And yeah, he was killing it, man. He really was killing it.
Yeah, unreal. Was the first Whitesnake record you connected with 1987?
It was the 87 record, but I did get into everything else after that.
So you went backwards a bit. Yeah.
I kind of came in at 87.
Yeah.
Because I'm a 72 model. So
with same batch. Yeah.
Yeah, we are. So and I loved that record, and John Sykes for me, I don't know why he was never a more household name.
Exactly.
Than he was, because he rips on that album.
Oh man, he kills it. He kills it so hard. One thing too, when I think I've got to agree with you with the Whitesnake lineup. Even Vandenberg, Steve Vai, Bernie Marsden, all those fantastic guitar players aside, this lineup I think kills it. But what I loved, all the songs from that record, which I loved as well, they're really respectful towards the John Sykes parts because they're so good.
Yes.
And yet they still bring their own flavour to it. Can we talk about that a little bit? Because I know you know Hoekstra and Beach really well. What's your take on that? On them bringing their own kind of thing to classic parts? It was
interesting. So you take the first song they played. So that Bad Boys. They played Bad Boys. And so Joel Hoekstra, comes out to do that solo. And in that middle bit, where the middle bit of the solo, where John Sykes does that ascending run, it's. Let me just try and turn this up a little bit. Sorry, I do have a guitar here. Sorry, buddy.
That's great, man. That's so good.
So I think the initial run in that solo, John Sykes picked it. So it was this. It was that whole thing.
Okay.
I noticed that Joel, not being as big a picker, he did that same run, but he did it like this. So he tapped it.
Yeah. Okay.
It was still the same sequence of notes. And so I don't know whether you're picking that up. They were taking John Sykes' thing, because John Sykes was a serious picker, man. Like that guy, he could out-shred Malmsteen. He was faster than Malmsteen and those guys.
Wow. That's insane.
Yeah, I know. He was just... And some of the solos that he played on that record, like even that run in Still of the Night.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So, but those guys would either hammer or tap or whatever they were comfortable with, but they'd play the same solo. So I kind of thought that was really cool. It was just a modern take on what John Sykes did, using the techniques that they were comfortable with.
Yeah, killer.
So yeah, man. So I thought, but they were both really respectful, and you know, like the "Here I Go Again" solo, Reb tapped that run at the end.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it still worked. You know, it's still his thing, and he's such a charismatic and funny guy on stage as well. You know.
Yeah.
They just pulled it off. So, but yeah, you're right. They literally did play for the most part the solos on those older records.
Unreal. Love that. And I noticed that when you say the "Here I Go Again" run that he tapped it. We were talking about that sort of technique when you and I last spoke on your episode too, that kind of legato four note per string, three, 4 notes, but doing it with a right hand tap. That's cool. And Hoekstra, of course, is doing his multi-finger thing, which is another ball game as well.
Yeah, it is, and that's the different sound, and I think it's really cool that you have two essentially strong tappers in a band, but they both do it completely differently.
Yeah, cool.
So Reb's more of a scalar guy.
Mm-hmm.
So the Reb Beach way is more this sort of thing, and I don't know how well this is going to come across. Hopefully you can hear it. But Reb does he does a lot more of this sort of thing. You know, you get this. He does a lot more of that sort of vibe. Whereas Joel does, I noticed over the years with him, he will take a phrase like this. He'll take that. So now I'm doing a multi-fingered thing.
Okay.
And he'll play that in octaves. So he'll play a lick like this. So it's more of that sort of thing.
Okay.
So it's a completely different sound.
Yeah.
So I love it. You can tell I'm a massive fan of tapping.
Yeah. Cool.
And the multi-fingered thing's been part of my style for probably 10 years now. So.
Okay.
So,
nice.
But they did get a lot of improvising, you know, moments as well, like stuff like "Love Ain't No Stranger." You know, they didn't copy solos in that; they just did their own thing.
They just shredded, yeah.
And apparently, Coverdale's the greatest boss in the world for that because he just loves guitars.
That's so cool. Ain't No Love in the City as well. They both took those beautiful solos.
Oh, yeah, I have Reb's solo on video, and it's absolutely stunning.
I know, I love that because I was writing a review. I had my little notepad. I was nerding out. In fact, there were some other reviewers in my row, so we all had notepads. It's the dorkiest thing ever. But I'm writing in the dark. I couldn't read my writing afterwards. But
I was going to say that's pretty amazing, man. Doing that.
Yeah. But I scribbled. Ain't No Love, Red Beach, tick tick tick, and then. Towards the end of the song, then Joel takes a solo as well. It's like, man,
killer.
That was killer.
It's killer. And so here's a great thing with those guitar players, and you probably noticed this as well. You see some rock guys live, and they just don't sound as good as they do in the studio.
Sure.
Both of those guys were so precise.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if you watch a lot of Joel's stuff with Trans-Siberian Orchestra and Cher, he's just always so bang on live.
Yeah.
You know, it's just he just has a really clean style. And Reb, like I saw Reb with Winger when they came out here. I think it was 2011 or 2012. Was ages ago now. Nice. And he killed that night as well. And like everything he does is just rock solid, man. Like it's just all pristine.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about those guys, dude.
Yeah, unreal. Tone, like you said, the tones as well, unreal. I mean, that live playing, just to skip back, it's a totally different vibe too, from sitting in your bedroom or whatever. They just launch it like straight out of Bad Boys. They weren't easing into anything. And
that's right. They came straight out firing. Well, they had that whole that whole Rowley intro where Joel's just ripped. Like, so that guy he's got no quarter, man. It's like, you better warm up before you get out on stage because you are straight on, son.
Totally. Oh man, I did a wedding a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
You do the dinner music first.
Same thing.
Yeah. You just ease in dinner music first. Don't try. Right. And anyway, this was so cool. How about the Scorpions? Do you know much of their material? Like for me, I knew about 2 songs. It's just a different relationship with that band for me.
So my wife and I had this conversation last night. So I was the same. I knew the 2 songs.
The 2 songs.
The 2 songs. So for me, I never got into the Scorpions because, like 17-year-old me or 16-year-old me or whatever it was heard John Sykes and just went, holy cow, that guy, he's a monster. What a great player.
Yeah.
But the Scorpions never had that killer guitar player, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but he's just not that. He's an old school kind of souped up blues / hard rock guy.
Yeah, that's Matthias Jabs we're talking about as the fairly long-term lead guitarist, and Rudolf Schenker.
Yeah, well, he's been around for a while, and of course, Rudy Schenker, just pretty much plays rhythm, and that was his thing, but owns the stage. I mean, you got to give up that. And ridiculously fit for a 65-year-old man.
Yeah, well, he's the founder, and they've been going for like 50 years. Like, amazing.
Yeah, just killing it. So, but again, different relationship. I never got into them when I was young.
Yeah.
And I've just never come back around to crossing paths with them. But as far as hard rock bands go, and they had Nicky D on drums, and he's kind of rock royalty.
Yes, he was great.
He was really good. Really, really killer player. His solo was spectacular, and he's played with Motorhead and a few of those kind of bands as well. So he's been around.
Sure,
but just for me, it just wasn't. It wasn't the huge emotional rush of Whitesnake because I've got such a long relationship with that band.
Gotcha.
But I think Klaus Meine has still got a great voice.
Yeah, he's still got his whole timbre, his whole vibe is there.
Yeah, and he didn't back off any notes. And the funniest thing about that, I think my favourite moment in the Scorpion set was the new song that nobody really knew, that we built this house on the rock, whatever that song was. I thought that was a really good track. So that was kind of the highlight for me, was that song. But again, not the same relationship with that band as I have with Whitesnake. And the other thing we should mention is Tommy Aldridge.
Yeah, man. Yes.
I know this is Guitar Speak podcast, but I'm a massive fan of drummers, and he is just an animal. And I think he's the oldest. I think he is in his 70s. I think Dave's 69. Wow. And he's still doing that whole thing. And then, of course, he chucks the sticks out and does the other half of his solo with his hand.
Yeah, the Bonham style thing,
So he was amazing as well. So the whole night for me, mate, was just a massive, adrenaline rush. I loved it.
Yeah, unreal. I'm with you, man. And the Scorpions thing, I think the other thing too, for us in Australia, and when we were teenagers listening to music, getting into stuff, just the radio play and exposure wasn't there for the Scorpions in the same way as, say, Whitesnake or, Europe or some of those bands that we would have had much more access to. It's easy to forget in the internet age now, we could just... you could stream something to check out a band, but back then it was much harder. So,
and it was, and I think they had the whole, anti-Western culture working against them as well. So it was much harder for them to be in America back in because you know what it was like, the Cold War in the 80s. America and Russia and all of those Eastern Bloc countries kind of hated each other.
Yeah.
So I was never as exposed to the Scorpions as I was to Whitesnake, and they had a few things working against them. Always knew about them.
Yeah.
But again, when I got into metal, it really was, mostly about the guitar thing.
Sure.
And Whitesnake had John Sykes at the time, and then when I went back and listened to Bernie, and he was great too. And, so it was much more of a guitar journey for me.
Yeah.
With those guys, and then of course the thing that sealed the deal for me with Whitesnake was when Slip of the Tongue came out. Having been such a fan of '87, Steve Vai had joined the band.
Yep.
And so then 17, 18-year-old me is going, well, I love Steve Vai and I love Whitesnake, and now he's in that band. So, that just sealed the deal for me.
Yeah, cool.
So, but yeah, man. So for me, I think that's the best. That's the best version of Whitesnake I've heard.
Yeah, unreal.
It's cool, great, loved it.
Excellent, man. Jeremy, thanks heaps. It's been so fun reliving all the super guitar moments.
Yeah, mate, always. So, mate, I'm looking forward to doing it again when we've, when I've got a new project to talk about with you.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. And I know there's some great stuff going on with that, as we spoke about off air. So, yes. So don't be a stranger, and we'll
never.
We'll keep talking, man.
Never. Yeah, always, bud.
All right. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, legend. See you, pal.
All right, there you go. Whitesnake and the Scorpions discussed Infinitum. Now, if you were at that show in Sydney, or any of the other shows of that tour for that matter, I would love to hear your thoughts if you agreed with some of the points we've been making on this episode, or if you had another perspective. I would love to hear those. Drop us a line at GuitarSpeakPodcast at gmail.com, or go to our Facebook page. You can join our Facebook discussion page as well. That's the Guitar Speak Forum. Lots of ways to get in touch. Okay, that's about it from here. I'm going to get out of here. I'll catch you next time on the Guitar Speak Podcast.